When Star Wars returned to toy aisles everywhere in 1995, a lot of us who were lifelong Star Wars fans were beyond excited. It meant our favorite brand was finally available in toy form again, and it was no surprise that the main focus of the releases from Kenner/Hasbro was going to be the classic trilogy. Well, at the time, it was the only trilogy. There were no prequels or Disney movies. And while they did branch out with some what are now considered expanded universe or actually even legends now in the new Disney-owned aspect of Star Wars. I don't think Shadows of the Empire happened, but in 1997 it happened, and it was a really big pop culture event. It was a movie without a movie. It had a book, it had a video game, and it had an action figure line. And after the success of this, Hasbro Kenner did look at doing other expanded universe figures from some of the books and some of the Dark Horse comic books in really what was the first ever wave of dedicated non-movie figures. And it included characters that went all the way back to the early 80s, inspired by concept, to revisions of major characters, to brand new characters that had emerged from things like the Timothy Zahn books, like Mara Jade, who has had numerous figures over the years. And this wave also had an innovative feature of packaging that had a diorama that broke out from the back. You cut it and it popped out, and it was a cool place to display your figures. And you could have your first ever Grand Admiral Thrawn in a Chimera playset, I guess, for lack of a better word. Well, while this wave was really cool, it shipped with some original trilogy figures that didn't sell as well. And because these were in the same assortment, Hasbro was under one of the biggest misconceptions or jump to conclusions that I think the brand ever went through, which was that expanded universe figures don't sell. And this proved to be far from true, but because these original expanded universe figures shipped with some less than A-plus characters, this stigma lasted for years until we finally got more expanded universe figures, not as single releases, but in the form of 2-packs. And they were better than ever. They were better than the original releases. A lot of the figures from that first wave got updates. And these 2-packs, which were known as the comic packs, greatly expanded the number of characters in the Star Wars toy universe, really more than ever, because it dug deep. We got characters from books and video games and comic books, and it was almost like the bottle with, the Pandora's box was just unleashed, and we were going to get so many cool characters. Now, the first sort of tiptoe into this, because again that original wave underperformed, or at least in Hasbro's eyes it did, because of the included sort of D-list original trilogy figures. So that meant their first attempt at these comic packs were going to be simple repaints. Things that involved no tooling at all, but taking existing figures and putting on kind of comic book-y deco, which in this case inspired by the Marvel comics in the early 80s, which had all of the major characters, but in sort of slightly more comic book-y feel. Eventually, though, after the success of these, more and more tooling was allocated to this subline, and we started getting crazy deep in the character selection and crazy deep in the tooling. We were getting fully sculpted figures. We were getting, all sorts of... We got our first female X-Wing pilot. We got alien X-Wing pilots, and we even got my absolute favorite Boba Fett of the entire Star Wars line, which was his sort of escape from the Sarlacc look, which the figure also looked very much like the original vintage Kenner figure, but now with more articulation. And we also got our first ever Bothan, because that way we could, kill him off, because, many Bothans died to bring us that figure. The final waves of the comic packs were shipped exclusively to Entertainment Earth. And actually, Entertainment Earth didn't even know this was happening until it was announced at Hasbro's San Diego Comic-Con fan panel, and it caught Entertainment Earth by surprise. Oh, I guess we have exclusive packs, don't we? But I suppose that's a YouTube video for another time. Take a drink. So the comic book packs wound down due to sales winding down, and there was one pack that remained that wasn't allocated to Entertainment Earth and that had already been tooled and had started to go into production. And that was the pack with Cammy and Fixer. And you might be saying, okay, who are Cammy and Fixer? Well, in the original cut of A New Hope, we spent a lot more time with Luke on Tatooine. And that's where he meets up with Biggs Darklighter, and he flies around in his T-16 Skyhopper, shooting womp rats that toss away line. Well, all of that was never seen on screen, but it was captured in a lot of expanded universe art and card sets and paintings and comics, and in the radio drama, which the entire first episode of the radio drama takes place on Tatooine, and that's how we meet Luke, and we meet up with his friends and his sort of tormentor in the form of Fixer and his girlfriend Cammy. We do see Luke in the movie playing with a Skyhopper model, and that's sort of the only nod to this deleted aspect of A New Hope. And eventually we did get a toy of the Skyhopper in Power of the Force 2, which I still have right here on my desk to this day. I absolutely love this toy. And we did get Biggs Darklighter in his Tatooine deleted scene garb in the 30th anniversary line, complete with commemorative coin and soft goods cloak that rubbed off on his shoulders and back, leaving a black smear. But again, YouTube video for another time. The other characters from Tatooine, Deke, who we briefly see, and then Cammy and Fixer there, never got figures. So Cammy is played by Ku Stark. And, well, speaking of Stark, I know this is going to be a terrible transition here. This is like why I need to fire my writer and my editor. So, Stark, Game of Thrones. You know how Tyrion and his girlfriend on screen, Shay, a lot of folks know that before she was in Game of Thrones, she was actually an adult actress and did some very adult movies. I will leave it to you to handle Googling that. But, fun fact, because that's, what YouTube is all about, Ku Stark, who played Cammy before she was in Star Wars, also had quite a vibrant role in adult movies, and she's not the only pop culture heroine who went from adult films to pop culture films. So there you go. There's your fun fact of the day. All right, so back to this figure pack. So the pack was sculpted and tooled. It was based it was based on the movie look, but they also appeared in a comic, which is why a comic was packed in with them and why they were released in a comic pack. The release was going to be, or really actually was, for Celebration 5, which was the sort of biannual, still kind of biannual, Star Wars convention. And it was noted that a very limited number of packs were going to be released. And this was because the whole comic packs were winding down. They weren't selling as well. And Hasbro felt that, well, if there's any place that we can sell a pack based on a deleted scene from Star Wars, it's at a Star Wars celebration. That's where the most fanatical Star Wars fans are. And a lot of them go to these celebrations to both meet up with fellow fans and harass people in their cosplay, as well as gather together for giant group shots, because, what's cooler than a whole bunch of people dressed up as Jawas and stormtroopers, and also going to purchase exclusive items. The shows are notorious for having exclusives that, of course, sell for, sometimes big bucks on the aftermarket. The George Sakul X-Wing pilot, which was George Lucas. George Sakul is George Lucas backwards. Not the only George Lucas figure we ever got in the line, but that was the very first action figure that was a Celebration exclusive. Other things would include some Lego sets and some, Pez dispensers and other sort of tchotch, and even kind of funny one-off items like, Jabba the Hutt grape nuts, because, it's part of this complete breakfast. All right, so besides being able to Star Wars-ize your kitchen table and your breakfast selection, back to this infamous 2-pack. When Hasbro decided to shift it from, because, they couldn't sell it to retail was absolutely backing off on these comic 2-packs. Their time had peaked and was now, interest was waning, for lack of a better word. So bringing it to Celebration was their best bet, and they also knew, with the characters being as obscure as they were, that if, they couldn't sell it at Celebration, Star Wars Celebration, there was no other place to sell it. And the same thing they did with a corresponding pack that was Darth Maul versus Owen Lars from, back before this really became more continuity, with Darth Maul having the robot legs, which now is official with the Han Solo movie and all that. But both of these packs they did not meet expectations at all. And especially the Darth Maul one did sell through, but the Empire pack with Fixer and Cammy did not, even though they did a very tiny run and brought it to the place Star Wars fans should be kind of the most interested. And it really sent the message to Hasbro, like, wow, are we going too deep? Maybe we really should be focusing more on kids. And this pack made them change their focus. They noted in several interviews afterwards that, yeah, this was a big eye-opener, that if they couldn't sell this pack to diehard collectors, then the time of going this deep in the line they may have, hit the not the bottom of the barrel, but yeah, I mean, they kind of, they went as deep as they could go, and they shouldn't go any deeper. So, Cammy and Fixer were great characters to get. I was so glad I got them, because as a fan of the radio drama, where they're featured very prominently in the first episode, I was so glad to have that as part of my collection. And they're I just consider them sort of deleted scene figures. But the chance of getting that Anchorhead playset with Deke, the other character that was on screen very briefly, he's in shadow in the background there, yeah, that's probably not going to happen either. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was enlightening for Star Wars fans new and old, and diehard and newbies alike. Share this video. It helps the channel a ton. It tells YouTube to share it with more people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.